Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Eric Frandsen, Jason Walker, as we continue to preview Region 11 football, where you have a chance to speak with Bart Bowen, the head coach of the Logan Grizzlies, coming into his fourth season. Coach, thanks for your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Coach, I guess just first out of the gates, just coming into your fourth season, being at Logan High now for a couple of years, what's different about your approach this season, maybe compared to the last couple where you've been with the Grizzlies?
This year, the kids that I started with freshmen are now seniors, and they're bought into what we're doing. We hit the off season really hard this year. We were in the weight room quite a bit. We did a lot of conditioning in the off season, so I think we're more physically prepared than we've ever been for a football season.
So I was going to ask, what your impression of the team is. I guess is maybe that some of your impressions is that they're more physically prepared for the season, or are there other things that have kind of stood out to you this off season?
This group of kids like being with each other. They're having fun together. It's a really good group of kids. They're tough. Like, we went to camp and they wanted to be the most physical team there. And so it's a little different than what we've had in the past, where we have, fast guys that can get down the field, make people miss. This year we want to run over people. We want to hit people. Looking
at your team, and correct me where I'm wrong here, but looks like you've got more experience coming back on defense. And is that really going to be the strength of your team this year, especially up front?
Yeah, defense, our front six, front seven should be the strength of it. We had to replace our DBs, our safeties, and corners last year. So we're pretty stout in the run game. Our replacements in the secondary are young, but they're tough kids. They're smart. They, are coachable. So I think defensively we're going to be pretty tough this year.
So kind of going back to what you said about being tough and, as opposed to maybe kind of skill-based or fast or whatnot, is that going to kind of lead to kind of a bit of a style change? Are you going to focus more on, run game defense as opposed to, spreading it out, throwing the ball around and trying to beat people with speed?
Yeah, so we've shifted our offense a little bit. We're doing a lot of the same stuff we did last year, but less spread stuff. We're going to put more people in the box. Our goal is to get 3 yards of run play, slow it down, and basically take a lot of time off the clock.
What's it like for you, as you've kind of alluded to, this is your upperclassmen now have been with you in your style and how you coach and how you work with the kids. What's it like for you, and what's it been like trying to develop that talent, but also the depth that's necessary? I know that can be a bit of a challenge at a place like Logan, but what's that been like for you over the course of your seasons, and how does this year kind of compare?
Yeah, so we've always tried to develop talent. We try to take kids that, aren't necessarily the blue chippers, and we try to teach them, how to do the basic fundamentals, and every year they get better. Every year they get into the weight room a little bit more, and so, this is kind of the culmination of that program, what we can turn you into in 4 years. So our kids, they know how we coach them. They're used to it. We can get on some of them a little more than, when I first got here. And they understand there's a purpose behind it. It's not just me being mean. So it's been fun to coach this group.
So, Coach, correct me if I'm wrong on the information I have. I believe it looks like you're replacing 9 starters on offense.
Yeah.
Or something on that. And I guess kind of my question is, what's the biggest challenge of replacing, that many guys, where it's pretty much pretty much all your skill players, quarterback and whatnot? What's the biggest challenge there?
Biggest challenge is you've got to coach the little details. When you have a bunch of returning starters, they already understand a lot of the nuances, and you have to get very basic and be very specific with everything, and you have to coach every rep. And so we've got coaches making sure that we're taking the right steps. We're focused on fundamentals more than we're just inserting fancy creative stuff. So we'll get to that point, but right now it's this is the basics. This is what we got to be able to do to be successful. And, the kids are learning really well. I had to convert 2 defensive players to play offensive line because we just didn't have any depth there. And they've actually done a really good job at learning and picking it up. And our quarterback, he's young, but he's a smart kid. He's coachable, and, he'll do what we ask him to do, and he wants to be successful. So he's willing to do whatever it takes to win. And, that's really all you need.
We're talking to Coach Bart Bowen, head coach of the Logan Grizzlies, and Coach, from year to year, you're always having to look at replacing players at key positions because they graduate, they move on. But is your coaching staff is that in place as it was a year ago, or has there been some changes there for you?
Yeah, so my defense coordinator's still with me. His 2 assistants are still here. I've got, we moved my running back coach to wide receiver because I lost my wide receiver coach. And then my quarterback coach I promoted to be the OC, and then lost my line coach, so I took over the offensive line. It's been tough to find coaches this year, so there's 6 on my varsity staff as of right now, and we're getting by. It's a lot easier with more hands, but you want the right coaches, and my staff is doing a really good job. They, we're all on the same page. We know what we're trying to get across. We make sure we, help each other out with whatever it is. So we work really well together.
So I guess looking at your team in camp, like as far as the newcomers, guys who are kind of stepping into maybe a starting or rotation role, like who's stood out to you among those guys?
Young guys stepping up. Titan Mason, who's a sophomore, he's stepped up quite a bit. You look at his numbers in the weight room, and he's just as strong, if not stronger, than majority of the guys on our team. He's a very talented kid. We're excited to see what he does this year. On a quarterback, Keaton Pond has done a really good job for us. He's a really good leader. And then defensively, we've got some young guys like Brock Brown playing safety. He's a very talented kid. The Lazari brothers, Alan and Ryan, at corner. They're some of the toughest corners we've had since we've been at Logan. And so, there's a lot of youth, but, like I said, they're coachable. They want to get better. They're doing what we ask them to get there. And so, over the course of the season, they're going to take their lumps, but they're also going to, show some people, hey, we're young, but we can play football.
I know you're primarily focused on game 1 when you're hosting Viewmont, but if I could ask you to look at just the generic non-region schedule in general, I shouldn't say generic, but in general, looking at the non-region schedule, it looks like there's a number of teams here who, compared to what they did a year ago, seems like kind of a favorable schedule for Logan. I know each opponent proposes unique challenges in and of itself, but when you look at the schedule, the non-region schedule for your team, what do you see in those type of teams that you're going to have to face?
As far as region goes?
Non-region, sorry.
Non-region. Juan Diego, they got a new coach. I'm not 100% sure what they're going to be running. Can't get a ton of information on them, but, they're always a tough group of kids. They're hard-nosed. They want to run the ball, so that'll be a good test for our run defense. Viewmont got a new coach, so, we have ideas of what they're going to be, but, they have a stud quarterback, so that's going to, see how good we are at stopping a mobile quarterback, which in our region we have a couple kids that can move back there. Bonneville, don't know a ton about. We were just kind of handed that game when we go up to the border wars at Utah State. And so, when we get some film on them, we'll find out. And then Woods Cross, I know they're coached well. They didn't have a great season last year, but, Brody does a really good job at, getting his teams ready to play football. So I feel like we have a pretty good non-region schedule that's going to prepare us for this region group. In our region, if you can't stop the run game, you ain't going to win football. So we wanted to schedule teams that run the ball well and have, a lot of athletes on offensive side of the ball so we can see what we can do with our defense.
So you kind of mentioned you've got some youth on your team, and I've seen a couple of places that you're going to have a bit of a young team, and sometimes that's kind of code for we're not going to be very good this year. But, like, how do you take a young team and try and defy that stereotype that young teams end up having, worse records?
I think you have to make sure these kids focus on the right now, this play, rather than the outcome. Because if we're focused purely on outcomes, that's kind of, you're going to get deer in the headlights a lot. You have to help kids work through the different parts of the game. We have to work through adversity. So young kids, they're not always used to getting in a situation where they're getting beat. And how do you climb out of that? And so I feel like we have enough leadership with the older groups that have experience on varsity that they're mentoring the younger kids and they're helping them push through it. Even with our youth, I still think we're going to be fairly competitive. Like I said, we will take our licks in certain areas, but, there's ways to help out those younger kids and, provide them some assistance on the field as well. And then, just keep them confident. So as they take their licks, you just keep working through it and showing them the successes they have had. And then as the season goes by, they do develop that experience and they're ready.
One last question for me, Coach. And you went to Bear River High.
Yep.
Coach Cox, Coach Ander, they went to Mountain Crest. Coach Visser went to Preston. So there's a lot of coaches in this region who are from this region. And it makes it a lot of fun, I think, that you guys are more invested in, and not to say those who didn't go to school here originally aren't, but it makes it more interesting when we get into region play because of you've got the history, you've got more of familiarity of the rivalries and just the sheer geography of what's going on. What's that like for you being in the middle of this region and having so many different coaches that grew up through this region and playing in these high schools?
This region, there's never a down week. Like, everybody knows everything about you. You go into it and everything's a rivalry. Kids are friends with people on the other team. Kids have enemies on the other team. You have to coach every single week in this region in order to have a shot. So, I've been in regions where, this team, you're not going to have to do a whole lot. You can get your younger kids in, but it doesn't seem like that in this region where, you're constantly preparing. You're constantly getting ready for this group. And even the team that, is supposed to be the underdog ends up, playing you really tight. And you're lucky to come out with a win. So, it's fun, but it's also one of those, you have a 5-week stretch where you don't get a lot of sleep and you're working your guts out.
Well, we look forward to this upcoming season for you. Best of luck. Always excited to see the adjustments that the coaches make with the personnel that they're given, and excited to continue the very long tradition of having Logan High athletics on our sister station KVNU, which dates back, 85 years or something crazy like that. It's been a long, long time. So look forward to hearing your games on the radio. Jason Walker, you're going to be calling the play-by-play for Logan.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. Definitely looking forward to it.
Well, Coach, thanks for your time and best of luck this upcoming season.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.